you embroider?
I have many skills.
What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins.
Thank God we're hot chicks with superpowers.
Hi there, this is Leigh and Joy from the Feminerd Files, and we are finally doing our podcast about ClexaCon.
Woohoo!
Oh my God. Where to begin?
Where to begin? It was just a luscious, beautiful, inspiring, tear-bending kind of weekend.
I like that you said tear bending. That's awesome. Yes, I would totally agree with that. It was like a life-changing experience. It was a once-in-a-lifetime feel is what it felt like for me. It was just really, really, really awesome. It's totally changed my idea of the way cons should be from now on.
Oh, totally. I was like, I don't think I'm going to go to anything else. I'm pretty much satisfied with this. So thank you, ClexaCon, for that.
But I think it also made me want higher expectations for other cons that I do visit.
Yeah.
So especially Denver Comic Con, because they are advertising to be more inclusive and they partner with Denver Pride. And I would like to see more inclusiveness at Denver Comic Con, not just the occasional one or two panels about queer representation in comics. But I definitely want to see more now that I've seen it at ClexaCon as being a main focus.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should probably tell our listeners what ClexaCon is if they don't know, if they haven't heard.
Good point.
So ClexaCon was started a couple of years ago, and it was in reaction to the death of Lexa from the show The 100. People who pay close attention to queer women in media are a little sick of this trope of the dying lesbian relationship by sometimes rather violent means. This is what I learned about at ClexaCon, the bury your gays trope, which you could probably it's been going on for decades since media has been a thing. We saw it with Xena. We saw it with this 100 Lexa. We saw it in Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. We saw it in The Walking Dead. Where else? Leigh, do you know of any others? I'm sure there's a bunch.
There are a bunch. Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of all of them. But
it's just ridiculous.
It's just a common thing.
It's ridiculous. It's basically saying, we're not allowed to have these healthy, happy relationships where both people are actually alive.
And it's a way to get queer viewers to start watching a show and get involved in a show, and then
queer baiting.
Yeah, queer baiting. And then, after they get rid of those characters, they just assume that you're going to continue watching it and not be as upset as you are.
Whereas some people just stopped watching, like Monica and I.
Yeah.
We haven't watched The 100 since they killed Lexa. I'm sure it's still a good show. We enjoyed the show, but after that, I was just depressed. So
Well, and that was something they talked a lot about at ClexaCon too, that, if you care about these things, then, they want to just basically make money. So, if you're watching these shows, support the ones that have the positive representation. And when they don't have it, then be vocal about it. Stop, watching it. Like, use yourself as a way to, make what you want to see on TV.
Yeah. Boycott that if you want to. Or start a con and start some conversation. One idea brought up about a TV strike where one viewer said that she was just going to refuse to watch any kind of TV that didn't have women of color, queer women of color in leading roles or in important roles. And she just called it a TV strike. I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to see what happens. There were a ton of panels from popular shows that are no longer on the air but are still popular with fans, and had characters that were either shipped or were realized. A lot of people there who were into fan fiction about characters. There were a ton of small panels to discuss cosplaying and tropes and fan fiction, specifically Lexa or specifically Korasami, which is one of my favorites, and Xena. Oh, trans representation in media, and women of color in media, and queer women of color representation, and the Gaysian representation, which I thought all of that was really, really needed conversation, and I learned a lot from going to some of those panels.
There was also the one, the LGBTQ actresses panel that I really appreciated, and there was quite a bit of discussion about bisexuality and positive representation in media, because that's still something that's very much of a trope, and also, you know, stereotypes and things like that. It was really cool to see that Stephanie Beatriz came to this con. She actually contacted ClexaCon to be a part of it. She wasn't part of the original part of it because she her character recently, like within the last couple weeks, came out as bisexual on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she's also a bisexual actress. And so she just wanted to be there just to represent and to discuss and make that a point when she was there. She wasn't there to, you know, just get autographs and things like that. So she made that a very much an important statement. And I thought that was really cool. And it was really neat to hear her perspective and hear some of the perspectives of the other women on the panel. It definitely makes me want to discuss that more. Yeah.
Yeah, there were panels about writing for queer women, writing for queer characters.
Yeah.
And getting funding for queer writers and directors and producers, and finding those networks and connections, and finding the money. You got to find the money, and getting stuff out there that's just not that's for us, by us, and really honors these relationships that we have. What else? Oh, they had a film festival. So they put their money where their mouth is, and they actually showed films with queer content. And unfortunately, I did not get to go to one single film because I was so busy doing all the panels and then taking naps when I needed to that I didn't get to see any of the films. But I have the list in the programming, and you know, maybe we can publish that somewhere. So people can look some of these films up and support them, because I really want to see what's out there. I know there was a few that were older, like Debs, which is an old favorite of mine, and the Carmilla movie they played, Carmilla, and they did some documentaries, and then they did some small indie films, and I really liked that they had that going on, along with the panels. And but there was just so much to see with the big panels and the small side panels, and all the vendors, which were so talented.
Well, one of my highlights that I wanted to talk about was what we were calling the queer bubble. It was my first time going to an out-of-state con specifically geared towards queer women. And I wasn't really sure what to expect, but it was kind of funny. Everybody was kind of joking that it was like Dinosaur for nerds. And it was really cool to see how that kind of played out. It was in Las Vegas, you know, which doesn't necessarily seem like a place that you would want this safe space type con. But they did a fantastic job with it. I mean, I feel like when we were in the con space, it was the most comfortable and accepted and connected that I felt at a con. I can't say I've ever felt that anywhere else. Like, you know, you didn't have to worry about, you know, your safety or respect from people treating you correctly and not, you know, saying things that are rude, or, you know, judging your cosplay, or, you know, men catcalling, or, you know, anything like that, like you see at a lot of other cons. Like this one just really felt comfortable, and I can't really say that I've experienced that ever before.
Yeah, even especially like in a casino environment.
Right.
Like we're all walking through the casino to get to our convention, and it was just no biggie.
Yeah, and it was interesting, like the moment we would leave the casino or we would leave the convention area, it went right back to feeling like, oh, right, this is the real world.
Sad face.
Yeah, so I was really happy for our queer bubble, because it really just seemed so, you know, comfortable, and I really just want to live in that space forever.
Yes. Indeed. Oh, okay. So we went to ClexaCon the first year.
I regretted not going.
I'd read about that this ClexaCon thing was happening, and I'm like, oh my God, we have to go check that out. We only did one day. We got tickets for one day because I think we couldn't afford the full days, or we weren't sure we were going to go for all 3 days. We, of course, regretted that as soon as we got to Vegas. And it was a much smaller con, but it was still just lovely. We got to see BAM, which was what my partner first shipped as a young lesbian. And I had never gotten into shipping BAM, but I sat on the panel and it was delightful. And then come to this year, and it was probably triple the size, maybe more. I don't really know the exact numbers, but it was just insanely popular. And I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Enough that they pretty much ran out of merchandise by the second day.
Yeah. I bought all my stuff the first day.
Yeah.
But the highlight for me, really, being an older Feminerd in my 40s, I was really just touched by all the mention of Xena. She was my first big introduction to lesbian icons in media. And even though it was all subtext, there was this huge fan fiction following, and the websites and the forums and the cons, which I never got to go to a XenaCon because I was just this, young lesbian in Kansas, which didn't have the kind of connections to go to the cons. But it was so touching to hear people refer to Xena as sort of the first inspiring relationship that inspired fanfic and inspired the shipping and inspired these conventions of women getting together and discussing what's going on in media and representation. And I cried a lot because of that, because it felt so validating. And we got to cosplay with me and my partner and I, Monica. We cosplayed as Korosami, and our friend Lauren was Mako, and we actually won the best group in the cosplay contest, which was really exciting.
That was so great.
So
proud of you guys.
Time. And I was just kind of like a puppy the whole weekend. I was having so much fun, just really enjoying the vibe of everybody there. It was super nice. And I learned a lot. I felt so inspired, especially by the women I met who are younger than me, who are really just leading the charge in seeing more representation, good representation in media, and just writing it and creating it and doing it. And that was just so wonderful to see. And then I was very inspired by some of the showrunners that we saw. One Day at a Time was a highlight for me on the big panels. I cried a lot on that one because I just seeing all the representation with that show where it's the queer representation, the veterans, the Latino, and this beautiful family and these stories that really conquer some good subject matter in a lighthearted way, but a meaningful way. And I'm super excited that they got renewed for a third season. And woo! And Rita Moreno, so great. So yeah, I had an overall very, very positive experience, and I'm looking forward to future years of this con and them expanding. And I hope that they can get this con in other cities. That would be amazing.
Yeah, they are going to do London.
Come to Denver.
Yes. That would be awesome.
Okay, so my love of Xena runs deep. I was walking into a room for the cosplay prejudging, and there was a cosplayer there dressed like Xena, and I totally freaked out. Even though I know it's not Xena, like Lucy Lawless wasn't there. Lucy Lawless, you should totally come to ClexaCon, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Please come to ClexaCon. But anyway, I walked in the room. I don't even know her name, but she was amazing, and I doubled over crying. And I'm going to cry just thinking about it because it just meant so much to me to be around other people that appreciated Xena so much. And I just lost it. I just, all of this stuff comes flooding back of the emotion that I have with the show and with the characters. And I had a really hard time keeping it together. So there are pictures. We may post some pictures. Leigh, do you want to talk about an emotional moment you had, maybe?
Sure. I got to meet Emily Andres, who's one of my sheroes. She is the writer for quite a few different shows, but predominantly known for Lost Girl and Winona Earp. She has a very unique voice, and she really tries very hard to have female-led shows and diversity and a lot of queer representation. And so she's kind of just become a hero in the community for that because she pushes for it more than a lot of writers do for TV shows. And she very much is conscious of tropes and things like that she just doesn't want that to ever be a thing. She's very funny, which I also appreciate. So I just really, she was the main person I wanted to meet when I went there. So I got to see all of her panels, and then I actually got to meet her in person. And
she did a writing workshop for people.
Yeah, she did a writing workshop. I couldn't afford to go, but yeah, that would have been really cool.
I thought that was really a really nice way to involve your fandom and up and coming writers.
And she was even kind enough to like purchase some free tickets to do that as well, and she gave them away to people.
So great.
Like it was really neat. So it was really awesome to get to meet her. I kept it together. I didn't fangirl too much on it, but I really enjoyed meeting her, and that meant a lot to me.
So because this is a small convention, a lot of these stars and writers and people that we idolize are just kind of milling about to and from the convention, and you could just run into them. And that was we were a little starstruck. And there was a moment where Monica and I were walking through the MGM Grand, and we're just kind of in our, like, it's 10 o'clock at night. We're in our 40s. We're just wearing like practically our pajamas. And all of a sudden we're surrounded by the whole beautiful cast of Lost Girl, like just dressed to the nines, looking gorgeous. And they were completely surrounded us, just walking with us through the MGM Grand, like we were part of their entourage. And we were freaking out, totally freaking out.
I felt like I ran into so many famous people, and it just was like a normal thing. Like there was a couple times where it was in the elevator, and I'm trying not to freak out and just seem normal, but I was like, oh my god. So it was just kind of cool to see. It was a very relaxed environment. Like, it was interesting to see that the celebrities were staying at the same hotel. Mm-hmm. I mean, who does that? I mean, it's just really, it was very interesting to see that, and they were just very comfortable walking around and chit-chatting with people. So we got to, talk with quite a few people that I just never thought I would ever meet. So it was very, very cool to see celebrities just hanging out and doing their thing. I wasn't sure what to expect. I really was kind of worried about cost and everything because it's an out-of-state con and Vegas is expensive. And, so that kind of was my focus when I got there. But the more that I spent there, the more I'm like, this is just so important. And I really appreciated my time being there. And I would recommend going to anybody who is interested in this type fandom. And queer representation and female representation. I definitely would love to go again. I don't know if I will be able to, but I definitely would love to. So I think that's something that if I can plan for in the future, I will definitely go again. And I hope that we can get more people to come with us. We can do this as a Feminerds field trip.
Come with us. It'll be great.
Yeah. So it would be really fun to get more people together and on board on that. I think it'll make it more accessible for everybody. So come with us.
Oh, they're going to be in London. If you want to go, like, in a month or two, they're going to be in London.
Yeah, I think it's in the fall.
I don't know the dates, but they're going to be in London. So they can definitely come to Denver. So, London. Here it is. November 2nd through the 4th. So those of you who have the means, go to London. Check it out.
Yeah, they're calling it a pop-up con. So that's why I'm kind of hoping that they're going to do other pop-ups in other areas.
Did I mention they should come to Denver?
Yes, please come to Denver.
And bring Lucy Lawless?
Yes. And Clexa. Please bring Clexa.
Bring Clexa, for crying out loud.
All right. Thanks, guys, for listening. Thanks for joining us on this journey of our experience at ClexaCon. We hope that you will listen to more of our podcasts in the future for the feminerdfiles.net. And I hope that you also tune into some of our other side podcasts for the Feminerd Files, including Files 741, which will be done by me and Becca about comics and women in comics and inclusive comics, and meeting different types of authors and artists that make those comics.
Yes, and if you would like to join me for my upcoming show called Sustainable Joy, I'll be starting off with a web series about my adventures in beekeeping. I'm starting to take care of bees. I also am interested in other homesteading, such as chicken keeping and ducks and gardening and urban gardening. And I'll be talking to guests who are into sustainable living here in the Denver area and giving you tips out there, nerds. If you want to grow your own tomatoes or have your own bees, you might be interested in this show.
Thanks for tuning in.
See you next time.